24 by going, I can get to 24 by going 6 times 4, but now I still have 2 more numbers I have to use up. Any ideas how maybe I can use up the numbers? Oh, Katie, you're on fire with this. You've clearly done this before. So for the moment, I want us to think, if I've used 2 numbers to get to 24, how can I use the 3 and the 2 to get to 24, basically include them? That's kind of what I want to think about. Welcome, Mbali. What clever way have you got to use these numbers up and still get to 24 in a number sentence? And if you think you know, you can put it in a chat. I'm just going to rub these out for now. And then we're going to get going shortly. Welcome to Maya. I see you've joined us. Welcome to Zanetti. We're just doing a little Maths 24 fun game. You'll see that Keddy is our rating superstar in this department. And so he is generating the solutions, but we're trying to find a kind of way to get to 24 using these 4 numbers, and I've used up 6 and 4 already. How am I doing, David? I'm doing good, David. It feels like I'm getting back into the rhythm with this online teaching thing. So thank you for asking. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Oh, there we go. 3 minus 2. Yes. The key is to go 3 minus 2 is 1. And so if I put a bracket around this will use all the operations, multiplication and subtraction. And obviously we can use brackets and we get 24. Okay, we're going to start our lesson, guys. So, and girls, I just want to start with a little bit of admin. So at the end of today's lesson, we're going to do a little sort of have a go at having a little quiz, like an online quiz. And basically what it's going to be about is just some of the stuff we've done already. And we just want to make sure that this process works. Now, in order to do this quiz, you're going to have a profile with Watobe. You need to have signed up on the website. Now, your guardians or parents need to do this. And so they need to go to, let me just show you, here's a screenshot of the Watobe website. They need to go to the login part. And then once they, sorry, not login, sign up. And then once they've done the sign up over here, you're going to get this page where you fill in the details and then you get a login. In future, whenever you need to get information from Watobe, you're just going to then use that profile. If you zoom in, you're going to go to this lovely login button up here, and you are going to then log in. And when you log in, you would then have access to the quiz that we're going to share later in the lesson. Now, if you haven't signed up for this yet and you can't do the quiz today, it's not the end of the world. You could also ask your guardian or parent to sign up for you while you're busy with the lesson. But I don't want you to be distracted by this during the lesson. I want you to focus. I'd rather have you focusing, but just know you need a profile login to get this going. And so basically when you get that, if you were logged in, the screen would look something like this. You'd see like you have a quiz that's going to happen. This is my grade 8s. And then when you click start quiz, you basically are going to get this screen. And so then you hit that button and off you go. And so we will end the lesson normally with a quiz so that I will stay online to check that you can do the quiz. And then I will dismiss you by finishing the lesson with that quiz. So that is a lot of information at once. I just want to give a chance for everybody to either ask a question, or if you feel like you've got this and you understand what I mean, give me a thumbs up before I drown you in words. I think most of us are used to signing up for like a service, like an account. It's just this idea that for those of you who were with us last year, you have to get used to this idea that you're going to the Watobe website all the time. That's where all the action is happening. And I just want to make sure that you get that. Fantastic. Then just some more quickly about, for those who were basically weren't with us last time. So as I'm sure you've assumed, I'm the teacher running the class. And so my name is Peter, but often in classes and schools, I know it's uncomfortable to use first names. So you can call me Sir or Mr. S. That is all good. And I'm ably assisted by Anya, who's also a teacher. And so Anya, I'm just going to ask you to pop on for a second and to just say hello to our students who maybe are joining us for the first time, and just a little bit about you.
Right, so hi, it's good to see some new faces or so. I'm Anya, but you guys can call me Ma'am or Miss A or so, or Miss B for Van Eden. Yeah, that's me, and I'll be helping So with his maths lessons. And also, just while I'm on that note, So we'll probably abbreviate on this a bit more, but you guys, I'll also try in the chat from my side to help you guys to also keep an ear open for Sir and watch the screen, but also keep an eye on the chat, because I'll probably reach out there if you've got any questions as well. Right, I'll hand back to Sir.
So actually, while we're doing this, let's just go over some rules, because you know, like in the classroom, you kind of establish what the rules are by just being there every day, and we need to be a bit more sort of clear on that. So basically, when we start the session, or even, these aren't even rules, some of them are just guidelines in terms of we know they work well. I want you to make sure that you have a book and a pen with you, and I want you to be kind of ready to write. So a surface of, sitting at a table or somewhere where you can write, because we know that students who are actively participating in this process, we know that you're going to learn better than if you're being passive. It's just, there's been enough studies done that we kind of know that's like gospel truth. So we want to prepare you for that. So if you haven't got it already, get a pen, get a piece of paper. This is not a sit back and I observe. It just won't work as well for your time. And then also make sure maybe you have a glass of water or something. So, whatever else you need to get comfortable. And maybe we spoke about this in lesson 1, but a quiet space if possible. I know that we all have busy lives, but try and prepare an environment where your undivided attention is on this class. There's also reasons from research to think that's a very good idea. Then in terms of the mechanics of the class, like how we make this happen, we want you to all be on mute to start with, but we would love to hear your voice at some point. So there will be times where I ask you to unmute, and I want you to practice that, because once you get comfortable doing it, it adds a very nice interactivity to the class. But it is a bit odd at first getting used to this idea of going on and hearing a voice, and I know that myself, but we'll practice that during the lesson, and I will ask you to unmute, and then if you have a question, always raise your hand first if you have a question, and then Miss Anya will respond. Let me get this. She will respond in the chat, and she will say, okay, I've seen it, or I will, and then she will bring it to my attention during the lesson, and we'll get the balance and flow with that right with time. You just need to try it out and get used to it. So Anya, is there anything else I've forgotten, or have I covered the main? Are you happy with that in terms of the way we run it?
I'm just going to spotlight myself so they can actually see my face. I think another thing I haven't mentioned here, so if you guys have a question you want to ask a class, just raise your hand in the chat, please. I've always got an eye on the chat. So then I'll say, okay, right, Nicolette wants to ask a question or whatever. And once you have that queue, then you can chat. But then also, if Cern or I have answered your question, can you just please remember to lower your hand? Otherwise, we think you're sitting like this the whole lesson with your hand up, and that can be a bit distracting. So that's the only thing there. And if you don't want to ask in person, you can just ask in the chat or to me, and we'll help you. That's all from my side. Right, back to Cern.
Yeah, so Anya will often see your question and reply quicker than I can, because obviously I've got my eye on the overall arc of the lesson. Okay, and so you'll learn ways to interact with us as we go. And I think also we're very open to feedback. You'll see that. So don't be afraid to just tell us, oh, okay, I'm struggling to do this. But the best way to do that is to communicate it in the chat, and then it will get to me through Anya. feels like a lot of words. It feels like a proper classroom today with all these rules and regulations, but they are important to get things going. Okay, so let's think about some maths, I guess, because we are, I'm a math teacher and all that. In the last lesson, we were speaking about something called equations, and you were given some basic guidelines on how to solve equations. And I want to extend that idea today. And I want to take the complexity of the equation that we deal with and make it a bit tougher, primarily around equations with brackets and equations with fractions. But when we do this, I want us to remember the key ideas from last time, that really equations are just relationships between things, and that when we're solving them, we normally use, even though we don't use a scale actually, we use the idea of a scale in that if equations are in balance to start with, we want to keep them in balance throughout the steps that we're doing in order that we may get to the answer. So the ideas that we learned in the previous lesson will still apply, but we're just going to apply them to more interesting looking things. And the other thing that I don't know if I mentioned it too much, but you can always check your answer when you've solved an equation, because if you've got the correct answer, when you sub it back into the original relationship, that relationship gives you a true statement. And for those of you who, I'm using a lot of words, it's much easier if I show this to you. Okay, but let's start with the warm-up. So I'm telling you, I'm not using A's and B's, I'm using symbols, a square and a happy face. I want to know in the chat, is this statement true or false? So you can give me a thumbs up if you think it's true, and you can give me a thumbs down if you think it's false. You are told that a square plus a smiley face is 13. Is this true or false? And I'm waiting for the hands to flow or for comments to be made. So I see some hands coming, so I'll give we'll say true and false, and I'll see that are coming. So some people are saying it's false. I saw one person say it's false. If you want to make a comment on this, make the comment in the chat. Anybody think it's true? Okay, so I think I see mostly.
Sorry, Maya thinks it's true. Sorry, not David. Maya thinks it's true.
Okay, so most of it is false, but some of them are true. Okay, this is interesting. So the reason this question is a bit tricky is that we have essentially two variables here. So, a square and a circle are just kind of made up symbols, but really you'd probably recognize it more if I said A plus B is 13. Now, if I said to you that A was 7 and B was 6, well, then I think that the statement would be true, because 7 plus 6 is 13. But if I said, let's actually put this out. If I said A is, what did I say, 7 and B is 6. Oh, nice. But what happens if I say to you, it's not 7 and 6, rather A is 3 and B is 8? Well, then 8 plus 3 is 11, and the statement is not true. So it's actually a bit of a trick question. As long as the two values that you get here add up to 13, it will be a true statement. If the two values don't add up to 13 that you choose, it will be a false statement. And so this is an important idea with an equation. If you have two unknowns, you actually always need two answers. And we'll come back to this in a later lesson on simultaneous equations.
So
okay, now,
sorry to interrupt you. I see Mpau's got a hand up. I'm just going to give the floor to Mpau.
Okay.
Mpau, you need to unmute.
So while we're waiting for those comments, I want everyone to try and solve this equation for me. I know it's still warm-ups. Things are going to go a notch up in a moment, but I just want, while we wait for the comment, I'd like everyone to be busy solving the second equation.
Okay, and Paul, we can't hear. I don't know if you want to ask something. If you don't want to ask something, you can lower your hand. Otherwise, you can chat to us in the chat. I see Nosisa's hand is up as well. Nosisa, can you talk?
May I please ask, in the question before, is the statement true or false?
Okay, so the sneaky bit is that it depends. So I deliberately chose this question to make you think. So if a square was 5 and a smiley face was 8, for example, 5 plus 8 gives me 13, the statement would be true. But if we determined that the value of a square was 1 and a value of a smile was 2, those two values wouldn't add to 13. So the answer is actually, it depends. And so that is the honest answer. It could be either depending on the question, basically. Okay, let us try and do this question now. And then we are going to move on to sort of more formal questions. So I think a good first step would be to simplify this to that, and then ask yourself, okay, where do I get from there? And when you've got the answer, just pop it in the chat. It would be fantastic. I want to see that you've got the answers. What do you think the square has to be? And can you see how much easier it is if there's one variable? Yep, I see the people have spoken. And the people have said that it's 16. And notice how much easier it is to solve that because there's only one unknown. And then if there was two unknowns, that would be a little bit trickier. But that's a bit of, we'll talk about that later. Okay, let's do example 1. Now, this question is a lot harder to see straight away what the answer is. Like I might guess that the answer is 7, but I don't really know what the answer is. And I could try and put the value in of 7, right? I could put it in there and maybe I've lucky guessed it, but probably I need an algorithm, a series of steps that I can use to solve this equation. And the idea of the scale can guide us, okay, because currently these are in balance, but I need more sophisticated ways of solving or working with the scale and doing something to both sides. I need process. So I'm going to show you how I would do this question. And then from there, we can give another, you can do one. I will make up one for you. Okay, so let's do this one first together. So if I want to solve this equation, the thing that's making my life difficult are these brackets. So I really need to apply what's called the distributive principle. And so I'm going to multiply out the brackets. And to do that, I'm going to multiply 2 by x to get 2x. And 2 by 5 to get 10. On this side, I'm going to multiply this by that to get minus 12, this by this to get minus 3x, and this by this. Now, this is a negative 3 times a negative 2 is a plus 6. A lot of students may make a mistake with that, so I want to highlight. Okay, I have done the difficult bit for you. I want you now to take it from here and solve the equation and put the answer in the chat.
Sorry, so we've got
hand
is up. Sorry to interrupt you there.
Oh. Okay, whose hand is up?
It's Nosisa.
Nosisa, go ahead.
So may I please ask, since the negative 3 since the negative 2 is out of the bracket, how are you multiplying it?
Nosisa, you are on the money. I have made what's called a silly slip. But what I love about your answer is that it almost models what happens, right? So let's take this back for a moment. If we look at, thank you so much, Nosisa, it really shows you are on the money. I have multiplied this minus 3 by minus 2. Now, actually, if we think about why the bracket is there, that minus 3 only gets multiplied by the stuff in the bracket. I shouldn't be multiplying it by the minus 2. So let's look at what it should be. So it should be minus 12 times that is minus 3x. And the minus 2 is just hanging out all by itself. And so it should be there. So that is a wonderful, it's an example of the type of slip that you can make if you're tired or things. So thank you for that. Okay, I want you guys to try and now solve this question. And once you're done, put that in the chat. What do you get as your answer? And how do you deal with all these numbers and variables to try and get to a stage where you know what the unknown quantity is? In this case, the unknown quantity is x. And if you find what it is, you will have solved the equation. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Okay. And then I will look for the answers in the chat. So maybe we can clean this up a little bit and get minus 14 minus 3x on this side. And then what we could do is we need to find a way to get all the x's on one side, but we need to make sure that we don't violate any rules. We keep the equation in balance. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3x to both sides. Now, what that will look like is if I add 3x to this side, I'm going to get 5x. The 10 is still already there. But because I added 3x on this side, let's put a different color. So let's say I added, I'm not always going to do this. But essentially, I've kept the force in balance because I've added the same thing to both sides. But when I've done that, what it's meant is that it neatens up my equation fantastically because now I'm just 5x plus 10 is minus 14. Okay, I see the first answer is from Impor. He's got that. We'll check it in a moment, Impor. I want to see what other students get. So the first step I did was try to get the variables on one side. The problem I have now is this 10, but I think you all know that the opposite operation, or the additive inverse, if you really want to be fancy, is minus 10. So we take away 10 from both sides. And if we do that, we get 5x equals minus 14 minus 10. Now notice how I'm leaving almost like the magical step out. I'm kind of, you don't have to show it, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm doing the same thing to both sides like that. Okay, I'll just take it away because it gets cluttered. So Paul, I think you're on the right track. Just want to wait a moment more. Does anybody agree with everyone else? Let's have a look. So we get 5x is minus 24. And so we get, if now the last step is what do we do to get an x all by itself? And I think most of you have got this. Basically, the opposite of timesing is dividing. And so I have to do that to both sides. And so my final answer is going to be x is minus 24 over 5. Or if I'm living in decimal land, or if I wanted as a, this is an improper fraction, how many times does 5 go into, goes 4 times. And so all of these answers would be correct. Okay. So should we do another one like that just to practice? Let me make up one on the spot. Let me, and let me actually zoom, let's do it here. So let's make it 3 minus 2x plus 7 equals 5 plus 3x minus 4. Okay, guys, this is a Mr. S special. And make sure that's different to the question above. It is. I would like you to solve this question for me. It's got lots of brackets and a couple of negatives. And I want to see, this time, I'm not going to give you any help. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes to attempt this. And what would the answer be for this question? While you do that, I'm going to get some water. I'll be back in a moment. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, how do we deal with this 3 and with that 3? And what techniques can we use? And then, Anya, while our students are busy working, is there anything that I need to be aware of in the chat, or anything that's, yeah?
No, all is good. It's just one thing that I noted of the previous question.
Yes.
I know in grade 11 we're a bit fortunate or so, but I just want to reiterate that if possible, do try to simplify your answer, guys. Try not to leave your answers as improper fractions. That's the only thing really from my side, but we're doing good. I'm happy. I'm happy.
Yeah, also think so. Cool.
Mr. Ace, can I quickly interrupt?
Yes, go ahead.
Just say, I think what we should do when it's time for the quiz,
Yes.
I'll post the link to the lesson page on the website in the chat, and then the learners can just go there, and then we can talk about being logged in or not logged in, instead of maybe you know, trying to take them through screenshots and stuff. Maybe this way will be easier.
Okay, so I'm going to put the link in the chat, and then?
Yeah, I'll put the link to the Watobe lesson page that they need to go to in the chat. Okay. And then we'll just talk about being logged in and not logged in, and then they can do the quiz from there. But I'll stick around till then if anyone needs assistance. Well, I will be here to assist with that.
All right. So everyone, that is the voice from the cloud, Marilise, who's the head of learning at Watobe. So just in case you're wondering who that is, maybe you can do a guest star.
No, it's very rude of me to just start talking in the middle of your lesson without even.
No, it's all right. Different rules, different spaces. Yeah.
Hi, grade 11s. Everybody, I'm Marilise. I have this title of head of learning, but I'm just also a maths teacher, and I'll be popping in every now and again to say hi and to interrupt and do stuff like help with quizzes and some of the technology where I can.
Thanks, Marilise.
Enjoy the lesson.
Will do. Okay, so let us 37 plus 21. I'm not gonna, the 5 is all by itself, it just hangs out there. 3 times x is 3x, 3 times minus 4 is minus 12. So I see some answers are coming through here. I'll keep them coming. I'm gonna just do the next step here. And let me zoom in so that this question is the only focus. Let's have a look. So I'm gonna neaten up this side, 3x, and we get minus 7. And then, okay, so we've got the same problem as before, where we really want to get all our variables on one side and all our numbers on the other. Now, my personal preference is I love to have positive variable things. So I have a choice. I can either try and move essentially the 3x across, or I can move the minus 6x. My preference from experience is that students do better where they end up with a positive x number, or the fancy word for the number in front of the x is coefficient, and where I try to get my students to have a positive coefficient at the end. So I'm going to, in this step, I'm going to add 6x to both sides. If I do that, I'm going to end up with 0x on this side, and I'm going to end up with a 9x on that side. And so just ask yourself if you understand that idea. Again, all I've done is I've added, I'll just add this at the end here. I've added a 6x here, and I've added a 6x here, but I'm leaving it out because it just gets cluttered. But the scale idea is still doing the power, is still making this happen. And now the last step, I'm just going to add 7 to both sides, And I would encourage you, if you need more steps, take as many steps as you like. But just because of the space and limitations, if I add 7 to both sides here, I get 28 on that side, and then I get that on that side. And then the last step is, this is problematic because there's 9x, and I would really like for my next step to be x. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this by 9. But if I do that, I've unbalanced the world, right? The force is out of whack. So I have to divide that side by 9 as well. And if I do that, my answer is going to be 28 over 9, which 9, 18, 27, see, good to know your times tables, is going to be 3 1/9, or on your calculator, I don't know exactly what it is, but I think your answers are 3.11 looks good. Okay, quick thumbs up and thumbs down vote. Thumbs up if you're feeling good, thumbs down if you are feeling stressed and overwhelmed, just so I can get a feel for the class thing.
On that note, while we get the thumbs up and down, I see David has got his hand up. So can we maybe just give the floor to David?
David, go ahead, and whilst David says his questions, if I could ask all of you who are ready to roll on to the second question. I'd love you to give it a go. The second question, please. David, go ahead, please.
David has asked us to repeat the question. David, you will get a recording of this if you don't mind, unless someone wants to go up or so. After David, we've then got Chioma, and then we've got Suzanne.
So can I suggest, David, for now, I'm going to move on to this question just because of balance of time, but the recording will be available shortly. And what I suggest is you re-watch that example that I just did before the lesson on Monday. That would be a great, I think that will be an efficient use of time for us now. Next person, who was the next person who wanted to speak?
It was Chioma, but she's placed her hand down. Chioma, do you still have a question or not? You can shake your head or so.
Okay, Suzanne, I see you also raised your hand. And again, those who are,
wouldn't you try to put the x's on one side and the other numbers on one side, that you can, instead of plussing, I know, like you try to get the x alone. Yeah.
Okay, I tell you what, let's have a quick chat about this first, because I think David was asking about this too. So let me just go back. So the good news is there's many ways to solve an equation, right? So it's not to say this was the only way of solving it. I have a process that I follow just because of experience in the class, and that is that when I started this question, I first had to distribute the brackets. So that was my step one. And then actually, once I did that, I called the step 2 cleanup, because I'm cleaning up things on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And then I need to now make decisions about where I move things. But even if I had done it another way, I still would have got to the same answer, as long as I was following the balancing principle. That whenever I do something, I do it the same to both sides. And I'm making those choices in order to get certain things to happen, like get all the variables on one side, get all the numbers on one side. So I don't know if that helps a little bit. There will be more of these questions later in the same lesson, where we can practice, but I just want to give this one over here a go. And while I'm explaining, for those students who feel very comfortable, I want you to have a look at the one example 3. So let me show you, Susanna, I can't remember, but what would I do in this question, example 2, for those who are feeling a bit unsure? At the moment, the variable term is actually all by itself. Okay, so in order to solve this equation, I don't really know what value to put in to make this relationship true. So I need a process to follow. I know that equations are ultimately solved if I end up with an x by itself on the one side and a number on the other side, and I haven't broken the scale. I haven't made the scale be out of whack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away 4 from both sides, because it feels like this 4 is almost in the wrong part of town. If I take away 4 from both sides, I end up with this. And I think that that question is a lot easier to deal with than the one I started with. So I've made some progress, right? Now the question is, how do I deal with this 3/2? That is the difficult question. Do you have any ideas, Suzanne or David? What would I do with this 3/2? I really want it to be x all by itself. There's actually two things we can do. Okay.
Can I go give it a go? So I think
Please,
you
yeah.
would times it by 2, so you make 4 a multiple, a fraction, so 4/1, and you would say times 2, so the times 2 will cancel the denominator, and you'll have
Yes.
left with 3x.
Okay, so you absolutely can do that. In fact, you've absolutely smashed it. So what you want to do, the thing that's causing the problem is the 2 at the bottom. Okay, it's a fraction, but I'll give you one even better trick. Okay, because you're right, you're getting rid of the 2, and that's a good process. But you know what you can do? You can multiply by the reciprocal fraction. So watch this sneaky trick. If I multiply by 2/3 on this side and by 2/3 on that side, there's something very special that happens when I multiply 2/3 by 3/2. What's going to happen when I multiply 2/3 by 3/2? Anybody have any ideas? So I'll give you a moment. And for those students who are feeling very comfortable, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring up example 4, which actually, no, you can't do that. Let me quickly get another example to bring up for you while I get that. So for those students who are feeling comfortable, here is another question in the interim. Okay, any ideas about the 2/3 and the 3/2? Okay, I see it. So it will become 1. So 2/2 is 1, 3/3 is 1, and so I get 1x. And now all I need to do is go, well, and this is a good trick for you to learn, 4 can be written as 4/1. So any number can be written as 4/1. And so if I multiply this out, I will get 4 times 2 is 8. On the bottom is 3. And so my answer will be 8/3, or I could write it as 2 2/3. Now, a lot of you will be confused by that, and that's completely fine. Don't worry. We will practice more with fractions in the rest of the lesson. But I just want to bring this idea out that if you have a fractional number, or a fractional coefficient is the fancy word, if you have a fraction in front of your variable, if you multiply by the reciprocal fraction, that is the quickest way to get 1x. And I think it's a good method to consider going forward to be efficient.
So while we're on that note, I see Chioma's got a hand up. Chioma, do you have a question to ask? Okay, Chioma, you've got the floor, so you can either unmute yourself or you can chat in the chat.
Yeah, I'll get there now.
Okay, good afternoon, sir. My
Hello.
question is, since we have a fraction in this equation, don't we multiply, don't we look for the, okay. Since we have a fraction, don't we multiply the entire equation by the LCD? Like, don't you make the entire fraction like the entire equation a fraction, then look for the LCD and then multiply the entire equation by that LCD to make it easier to find.
So you're totally right. And this is where maths is interesting, in that there's always more than one way to do things. So I was recommending a certain pathway because of the fact that maybe some of the times it's efficient, but I would suggest always use the method that you're comfortable with if you're getting the right answer. So let's do this. Let's do what you suggested and multiply everything by 2. So are you suggesting that I basically want to do that?
Yes.
Okay, if I multiply that 2 out, I get 3x plus 8 equals 16. Now I take away 8 from both sides and I get 3x equals 8. and then I divide both sides by 3, and I get x is 8 over 3. And so the magic of maths is I still get the same answer. So you're absolutely fine. You can do that. As long as you're getting the same answer as me, don't feel like you have to copy everything exactly with me. Okay. I just want us all to try. Oh, that's already got that question, so that's fine. For my students, for people who are feeling like, okay, I just want to get moving here, I'm going to put a traffic light set of questions for you to do. So let me just grab them here. Hopefully I can get them all by the magic of Control A, or maybe not Control A. It's always one that won't behave. Try that again. Okay, let's move these up. The technology is not being strong with me. Okay, let me just do these questions with you, and then we'll move on to the traffic lights. So these 2 questions, I see the answers are coming through, and I just want to show you quickly how I would do them. So for me, this x is a little bit lost in town, and so I would take away x from both sides, and I would get 7 is 6x. So, and then for my last step, I would divide both sides by 6, and I would get an answer of 7 over 6 is x, or 1 and 1/6. So again, notice how I'm always doing the balance. You'll see that it's like I sound like a karate teacher or something, but look, you have to keep the balance in the equation. That is the key. In this next question, I really always start by looking at my variables. And so I'm taking away x from both sides to start with. Then I get x plus 5 equals minus 3. And then if I take away 5 from both sides, why would I do that? Well, what undoes plus 5? It's adding minus 5, or using the additive inverse. And so I get, if I take away 5 from both sides, I get minus 8. Okay. So I take a screenshot if you have to. I'm going to move to these 3 questions. I would like everyone to do the traffic light questions. And now you start by doing the green one. Once you've solved the green one, you go to the orange. And then once you've done the orange, you go to the red. And this is an example of the level of difficulty going up in each question. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this. And then we're probably going to try out the quiz. The quiz may have some questions in it that we haven't covered, but just do the best that you can at this stage.
So sorry to interrupt there. Paul's just saying that she can't see the question so very clearly. Do you mind just zooming in a little bit?
I totally can. Thank you so much. Let me move this to the top, and let me move these around a little bit so that it's easier and they're closer to each other. And we'll have them in a more vertical orientation.
And while you also put out, I have got the link to the quiz. So once you want me to share it in the chat, just let me know.
Will do. Let's have the students have a proper crack at these 3 questions, and then we will go from that point, and then we will do the quiz. Once you have your answer, let's call this question A, question B, and question C. Put your answer in the chat once you've done each one. And then we will start to see if we can get the quiz right vibe. And we will send off the students to kind of, Okay, I see some answers are coming through, which is fantastic. Just keep working at your own pace. Look, the wonderful thing about the internet is that we're all at different spaces. We're all in different places in South Africa. It does allow us to be a bit more flexible, and that's what we're trying to do with the traffic lights and things like that. So just kind of go from where you're at and work at that. So what am I going to do in this one? Let's see. I'm running out of space here. Okay, let me just divide both sides by 7 and I should get that answer. Okay, what about B?
I think while Sir's working on that, I'm just going to remind you guys, remember to first apply your BODMAS where possible. So if you need to expand your brackets, first do that. Then the next step is you try to get all your variables on one side. Variables is just a fancy word for letters, and all your constants, in other words, your numbers on the other side. So Nomusa is asking if she needs to do example 6. Can you maybe just give some feedback on that if you don't?
No. Yeah, totally. So if you've got a bit of extra time, do example 6. We're just going to wait. Yeah, example 6 is where we're going to, you don't have to do it, but if you've got time, I would say go ahead and do it. And then also, yeah, let's try and do this. Let's see what we can. 3b minus 9. I do love my yellow highlighter. It brings me great joy when I get to scribble. So let us think about what comes next. So if I take away 2b from both sides, I get this. And now, okay, this is the thing that's causing me issues. So I add 9 to both sides. Now, what is minus 8 plus 9? It's 1. And this 9 goes away. So we should have b as 1 as the answer. If you got minus 1, you probably found that when you added the 9, you just made a little mistake there. So that's just sort of your mental maths. And now for this last step, well, you could multiply out, but what was that trick I spoke to you about? Well, you don't have to use it. You can multiply it out. But if you really wanted to make this a 1, what could you do that would deal with this fraction straight away and make the fraction go away? I'm just going to put it out there, but there are many ways to do this. You could multiply. Most people will multiply both sides by 2. And if you do that, what do we get? Well, 2 times a half is 1. So I just get 1. 2x minus 4 is 14. And 1 times anything doesn't change it. So I get to that step. If I add 4 to both sides, I get that. And if I divide both sides by 2, I get 9. So my final answer is going to be x is 9. Okay, guys, I'm not going to do the example 6. I just want to get a general feeling. Can you give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, depending on how your experience was today, how you found the lesson? I just want to get a general feel for how things went. And then we are going to attempt now to go to get into this quiz. So could we put, and also when you leave now, when you go into the quiz and you start the quiz, I want you to then say goodnight and just do the quiz. You don't have to come back to us. This is sort of we're finishing the lesson now. To be honest, guys, it's been lots of fun. Like, it's been really good. I think we've made good progress in setting up the environment. Obviously, we need to adjust the environment and we'll tweak certain things, but I personally really enjoyed it. And so, yeah, thank you for being here. And let's finish by just trying to do this quiz as best we can. There might be 1 or 2 questions that I haven't explicitly covered, but just try and do the best that you can. And so let's try and get in.
Okay.
And once we got into the quiz, just give us yeah, Anya, go for it.
Oh, well, it's actually my release.
Oh, my release, sorry.
Hi, everybody. I just want to explain to you. Anya put the link to the quiz in the chat, so you can click on that, and it will take you to that screen she is showing to you now, or Peter is showing to you now. Now, you need to be logged in to be able to do the quiz. You can only log in if you have login details, and that you would have received if you signed up. If you have not signed up for Watobe to get your 2-week free trial and to get your username and login, you will not be able to do the quiz today, okay? So your job then now is to go and speak to your parents or your caregiver and ask them to please sign you up and get your login details for Watobe so that next week you can do the quiz again. We are going to be doing quizzes every week on a Wednesday. So you are going to need your login details. Okay, now if you do have login details and you have signed up, then you can go right ahead now, click on that link, log in, and you will see a button that says quiz on your screen. Okay, so those of you who do have login details, you can go right ahead and do that now.
So there is the login button that Marilise is talking about. Marilise, if they sign up tonight, let's say their parents do it and they come back, will the quiz still be available for them to take?
Yes, indeed. If you do sign up now, if your parents do that now and you get your login details, then your quiz will still be available, and you can just follow the same link, and it will take you to the quiz. Okay. So
basically, sign up first. If you've signed up and got a username, you log in, then you should be able to do this. Okay, I think that is a good place for us to finish. We will stay online just for those students who are struggling to get in for the next sort of 5 minutes. But on the whole, it really was a great session, guys. Thank you. It was, I really enjoyed it.
Well done, grade 11s, and we'll see you here again on Monday.
Yep, Monday at 6 o'clock.